Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. If you're joining us straight from Channel 31 and In Pit Lane or on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, welcome to Full Course Yellow. This is the sort of get together that we have every week after the program, just to have a bit of a chat in these times of lockdown and all the rest of it. Not that we're locked down in Melbourne, don't want to rub it in or anything to anybody, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, there is a touch of karma involved in all of this, and hello to Gladys and all of her friends in New South Wales and to everyone on Sky News. But it's good to be with you again. There'll be more news coming up for COVID. Unfortunately, there has been some changes to the calendar yet again. The Winton Supercar round has been postponed to a date to be fixed, and we might chat about that coming up as well. Also, we'll be talking about Formula One over the weekend, and we've got another race coming up this weekend as well, Moto GP, and all the usual stuff. But to join me in the chat, we've got a lot of the usual suspects joining us once again. We've got Chris and Dave Stillwell, and we've got Doc and Pete. And gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to the
Evening.
program. And
Hello, guys, and hello, viewers and listeners.
so let's start off. Let's start off first of all, as we often do with Formula One. And Peter's our regular Formula One tragic. What did you think of the race on the weekend?
The race itself was a bit of a snooze fest, but with the McLarens, with Daniel Ricciardo, I thought on Friday he was going to do really well, and then I thought they doubted themselves for Saturday and made changes which were unnecessary, but it appears not, because he started the race in the same fashion as he did on Friday, but then he lost power. So it seems to have been an issue there, and I wonder if that issue was there on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he started off very well getting back through the race, but it looked really good, particularly in free practice two. At the end of free practice two, he was up there, and it was like, yes, he's dialed in for the race. But unfortunately, yeah, he did go backwards, and it was one of those problems that sort of flared up really badly for them, then seemed to clear itself. But by the time it had cleared itself, the damage was done, and he was back in the pack again. He's certainly not having a good run at the moment, is he?
No. And I think that was just when they rectified the power issue. I think it was just a case of he didn't have the tyre life.
Yeah, I think that's the situation too. But yeah, it was once again Max Verstappen put in a great performance, pretty much led all the way, and Mercedes don't seem to have the answer. And there's
Don't start Lewis on his whinging. He hasn't got enough power. Come on, get straight to it. Don't stop compensating for Lewis's bloody comments. Here, I haven't got enough power. Give me some power. Why is my power plant so slow now?
Yeah, he's not happy. But I mean, the interesting thing is that they're going to get a bit of extra testing for some. They're going to get a bit of extra aero testing, I believe, for Mercedes, which will obviously fire Christian Horner and Helmut up a bit. So that will he won't be happy at all about that. But yeah, they're getting a little bit of extra testing. But obviously they're back at the same circuit this weekend, and everybody, I think last weekend, everybody, including Daniel Ricciardo, was having the fingers were crossed for some rain. But apparently the forecast is it's going to be absolutely perfect on the weekend. So that's probably not going to happen, which is in a way is a shame, because it would have been nice to have. If you're going to be at the same track, might be good to have something a bit different to throw at it.
Well, this is only through Sky News. Obviously, it's everyone's interactive way of watching it. But Charles Leclerc got driver of the day after his clipped wing front, which wasn't too bad. But just going back to what you said about Ricciardo, wouldn't you have liked to phone tap either his or Christian's phone in the last couple of weeks when there was that conversation when Christian let it out of the bag? Yeah, Daniel called me and said, would you have me back?
I hadn't heard that, but
it's widely in the news at the moment.
Yeah, I think that might be the wisest move of Daniel on his part. I imagine that it was all tongue in cheek. I mean, let's hope it was tongue in cheek because
No,
otherwise,
Christians are the one that's actually come out with it and said, Daniel called me and said, can I come back? So, I mean, Christian's not one for BSing too much. He keeps it pretty straight on the line. Even Adrian's even a hardcore realist, doesn't joke as much as. But Christian was serious when he said it. It was a quote for quote statement.
yeah, I don't think
Christian does have a
the
sense
case.
of humour.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. It'd be very much tongue in cheek, particularly from Daniel's point of view. But I mean, even the fact that it gets out, though, I mean, it might be taken the wrong way, particularly by Zach Brown or something, and some of the people within McLaren to think that if he's publicly flagging the idea of going back to Red Bull, but he's not going back to Red Bull. I mean, this is probably his last roll of the dice for Daniel. If McLaren doesn't work, I can't see, a bit like Bottas. I mean, where else does he go? And I can't see him replacing
Sports cars.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, perhaps he could get a. Perhaps you could get a run in the new Peugeot, which we're going to see this time next week, July the 6th. They're going to release that, and from people who have seen the thing, and Graham Goodwin from Daily Sports Car, I think he hasn't said that he's actually seen it, but he's had some tips. He was saying that it really is going to make a lot of people look twice and really freak out when they see this thing. He said that it's a pretty special looking bit of kit. So I'm looking forward to seeing that on the weekend. But yeah, sports cars. They're becoming the destination, and as we mentioned last week, the John Hindhaugh line that Formula One is becoming the next step on the ladder up to sports car racing.
Look, I'm just picking up the pieces of bread behind David and yourself there, Brett, on the Bottas trail. If he does go across to bless you, David, goes across to what you were sneezing a minute ago. And George Russell has come out in the last week as well as too and said, I have not signed with Mercedes for 2022. Doesn't mean he's going to yet, but he has. Yeah. Therefore, so look, sliding doors here, but anyway, look, the public never ever knows until it actually all comes out the following year when all the nuts and bolts all drop out of the chassis that are supposed to be tightened up with Loctite. So let's just wait and see. They never divulge anything. But yeah, obviously George has made it quite clear. I want the job, but no. I'm waiting. I'm going to bide my time. I'm patient.
Dave, on to what Box is saying there. Bottas's spin in pit lane. I mean, it could have gone very badly wrong. I mean, we've seen it quite a bit in IndyCar, unfortunately, over the years. And but yeah, it is the sort of thing that can cause some very serious injuries and all that. So and to cop a 3-position drop, I must admit, I was a little surprised. I mean, they've given sort of excuses as to why it's happened, but were you surprised it was only a 3-position drop? That it wasn't a bit more, the sanction wasn't a bit more serious?
I think there's obviously multiple facets to this. The first, of course, is that Michael Massey has proven to be fairly judicious in his implementation of penalties. He's obviously spent a lot of time here in Australia seeing how we do things, and I think he's brought certainly a level of consultation to the role that perhaps might not have been there under the previous race director. I've worked alongside Michael or a couple of seats behind him while he was running the as deputy race director for Supercars and the race director for Super 2. And I've always found him to be a fair and well-meaning individual. I'd say that the 3 grid spot penalty, it reflects you can't work off the outcome of the incident. You've got to work off what the actual breach was. And once you consider that, that having worked in a Formula One pit lane before, if you ever get a chance to feel what the traction coefficient's like of basically bare concrete, and then if you look up and down Formula One pit lane, there's that big blue Allianz painted stripe down pit lane. You've got an engine that's making 1,000 horsepower and 11 million pound-feet of torque at the rear tyres with no traction control. You've got very little steering lock. You're trying to get out into pit lane. All it needs is just a momentary, tiny, slight increase in the amount of torque going to the rear tyres, which, of course, while they've been in blankets and are hot, they're not actually gripping the concrete. And, of course, there's no aerodynamic downforce on the car, so it's basically got no grip. The fact that it's taken this long for one of these cars to have that kind of accident in pit lane in the current era, I think is quite fortuitous. And I think it just sets the tone, as we saw with his comments post-race with Max Verstappen's burnout, is that, look, guys, this is a workplace. We need to consider that, okay, maybe it wasn't so bad this time, but we have seen things go terribly wrong in pit lane on the track, and these are meant to be the best drivers in the world. So let's hold them to the standard of being the best drivers in the world.
There has been a lot of criticism of the burnout thing, the decision there. I see that there's been a few people have been very critical of not letting Max do the burnout, telling him not to do a burnout, because it's almost compulsory to do it in America. I mean, if you go to the States and you watch you watch the NASCAR racing and also IndyCar, and I mean even supercars have loosened up restrictions on that now. I mean it's a popular thing.
Well, they have, but in the same time they've also scheduled it, or the expectation is that it will be there. So Michael Massey's point, and I do concur with it, is that we do see them do end of season burnouts on the main straight at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, because all the teams know it's going to be taking place. It's scheduled into the broadcast window. Every team up and down pit lane knows, this driver, because they've won the championship, gets to go do their cool down lap and then cut sick doing burnouts on the main straight. If you're Fernando Alonso leaving, or Sebastian Vettel leaving Formula One, for this time, except you're going somewhere else, or it's Fernando Alonso, you get to do some burnouts. The point that Michael made is that he's pulled up on a racing circuit. Once he and Lewis had cleared out in front, there was a fairly large gap back to the third and fourth place cars, and then there was a massive gap back to the other 16 odd cars in the field. You're talking about cars that at that point of the circuit are doing well over 200 kilometers an hour, and they come around and they deal with something that they're not expecting, that wasn't scheduled, that's not communicated, it's not pre-planned. It can be a very confronting thing, and they don't want to be the sport that has a car launch over the back of someone else into pit lane and injuring someone. They do make the point, obviously, they got very tight broadcast windows. Formula One is very much a commercial entity, with a myriad of broadcast arrangements through Liberty Media. And of course, the race has got a 2-hour broadcast window that they want to fit into. They want to get the race done and the cool down, and then obviously do their podium presentations and interviews, and then, of course, the national language coverage, depending upon the broadcaster. So even supercars is often like, if you're going to do a burnout, you've got to go, past turn 1 or turn 2. It's got to be a rolling burnout. You can't be stationary. Phillip Island's like now a big no-no for burnouts because they don't want anything damaging the tarmac. You've got to stop doing it by the time you get here. And normally they'll communicate over Race Management Channel if they've run right up to the time certain finish of the race and they're really running out of broadcast window, particularly on those free-to-air broadcast windows, which are very tight. They often say, no burnouts, we've got to get to the podium, we've got to get this stuff out, because there's all the other commercial considerations. Do I think it's, is it a great expression of, victory and celebration? Absolutely. But there's a time and a place for it. And if Formula One wants to do it, that's fine, but they've got to schedule it and plan it and be meticulous about it so that it's not unexpected.
There's just want to add to that. There's only one person you need to tell that even if they're running at 200 kilometers an hour and they're half a k back, Mazepin, don't give him an excuse to hit anyone, because he's very good at doing it himself anyway. So I just want to add that. He just wants someone to hit. He's looking for someone to hit. Jeff down the bottom there, would Dan ever race IndyCar? I think that would be probably high up in his options as well, though, too. I don't think it's in his immediate future. I'll throw it out to the rest of the group in a minute. But to answer the question off the bat, yes, it would be in his long-term plans. I think he'd be looking at all options, would be 3 or 4, and he'd probably having a chat to his immediate friends like Alonso and Mark Webber, etc. So yeah, Jeff, it's well on the cards. But look, even though Brett said his last roll of the dice is with McLaren, I think he's going to try and stay in that seat as long as he can, just in case of development. Because I mean, things change from every week to week in Formula One, let alone year to year. I mean, it's only coming out this week as well too. Ferrari have said that Red Bull sort of made a soft approach to us on whether we could grab the engines off them in 2022, but that probably changes next week, and they'll stay with Honda, or who knows? Next thing will be deal with Renault again, or there's just rumors and innuendo all the time. You don't find out until it's all actually happened.
The interesting thing
I'd observe
total. Let's go.
I'd observe that Dan's probably in a really good position with McLaren to get an opportunity to do some IndyCar stuff with the Arrow, SP, Splunk, McLaren IndyCar team. We saw Fernando Alonso go over there and do some driving. And of course, if Scott McLaughlin can make the jump from supercars to IndyCar racing with Penske because of the team that he's hooked up with, I'd say being hooked up with McLaren's a very good second to that Penske relationship.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, and that's more. We mentioned it also with Chaz Mostert making his decision here. There's because of all of this the interconnection between all these teams right now. And the other thing about if you have a look at Dan, apart from like wanting to race IndyCar, I know that he's a big NASCAR fan as well. He's always said that he's quite interested in NASCAR. He's also a big America-phile as well, and particularly Texas. He loves Texas. I don't like Circuit of the Americas. In every interview I've seen with him, and where people have mentioned America, he has always said how much he enjoys going to America, how much he loves being in Texas.
Yeehaw!
I mean, that whole Wild West thing. I mean, I just think Dan's so much larger than life. And let's face it. I mean, the media would lap him up over there. They would love Dan.
Well, they have been. With Drive to Survive, he's become a minor celebrity. He said he used to be able to walk around America and not get noticed. And of course, before COVID, I believe he's been working on a number of fashion collaborations with some fashion artists in the US. And of course, remember that Red Bull did a number of promotional activities, driving the F1 cars around Miami and Los Angeles and San Francisco and places like that. Of the English speaking. Australian, big smile, very positive, very brand friendly, very engaging for sponsors and commercial partnerships. So from that perspective, he would be a natural fit in the IndyCar paddock because it's very much more a fan focus, and it's nowhere near as segregated between the teams and the public. It's far more like a sports car paddock.
Yeah.
While we've just not for the die-hard fans like us five amigos here tonight, probably if you haven't caught up on any news during the week, keep an eye out for the new docu-series on Bernie Ecclestone. So not only is he flamboyant, eccentric and crazy, and look, I'm sure that's just some of the nice names that he's been called in his life. If it's a doco series about Bernie Ecclestone, it'll have a lot of sideshow Bob stuff to it as well too. A lot of things, a lot of associations on. So it won't be just about Bernie. It's about Bernie and everyone else around in his life and who's dealt with him. So it's I'm looking forward to that. I didn't see a release date on it, but it's apparently almost finished, and it is going to be coming up soon. So keep your eyes peeled for Bernie Ecclestone docu series.
You just have to keep your eyes peeled for the facts. If it's a Bernie series, just watch out for the secure facts.
Roy between the lines, yes, Dave. Is you? Anyway,
just waiting for the facts.
That's hard to decipher sometimes when it comes to Bernie. Remember,
Just wait for the facts.
The interesting thing is, I mean, Bernie has put his imprimatur on this and basically given his approval for all this to happen. And often when that happens, it often whitewashes. It depends on sort of, how much control, how much editorial control Bernie has over it and how deeply they go into it. I mean, an independent study of Bernie and some of his dealings over the years would be a very, very interesting story. And certainly once he's gone and outside of the window of legal litigation, I think that there's a movie and a half. I believe that the working title for the doco is called Lucky. So we'll see what that comes out.
Yeah.
It'll
Bernie
be
will
a
argue.
must-watch, no doubt about
Bernie
it.
will
It'll be a
argue.
must-watch.
I make my own luck, and I'll tell you so too. That's the way I'm doing it. All right. Okay. So luck. I may be lucky, but this is how it's going to happen. Anyway.
Pete, well, as you see on the ticker going by, rumour going around, according to Jos Verstappen, who's he's sort of taken over from Nicky Lauda and Jackie Stewart in terms of rent-a-quote. But now he's now he's saying that his view, and he knows young Mick very well. Of course, he raced with his old man, but he knows Mick very well. He's saying that Mick is being, and it would make sense that he's being targeted to move into the Alfa Romeo seat, probably to replace Kimi Räikkönen. Do you think that'd be a good fit? Because I don't know. I think the jury. I mean, we talked about him last week. It's only early in his career, but. It'd have to be much better for his career to be at somewhere like Alfa Romeo than it is to be at Haas.
I think so, but probably I would wait and see, because Haas has declared that they're putting all their time into developing the 2022 car, so I would probably give it another go at Haas, and then with a long-term view of going to Alfa Romeo. Which is in turn the sister team to Ferrari.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for that, Russell. Yeah, I've given that a bit of a boost. Very directional, this Mike. Every time I turn around, the audio disappears. Audio disappears a bit. As Paul is saying, with Winton postposed, what will be the date? November is being suggested. November is really packed. I don't know where they're going to fit it in terms of November. There seems to be so much on. I mean, Bathurst International and a whole bunch of other events happening. I mean, not to mention Island Magic, of course. I mean, they can't, But
there's usually some horse racing on during November. People like to go to as well.
Oh, is there?
And the legendary Winton 300.
Yes. So that's it is going to be packed. I mean, I was talking with once again in terms of what we do with 31 and for the rest of the season, because as I was pointing out to a couple of people in the last couple of days, this is usually the time of year where we take a break because things quieten down around here. I mean, we have the hot dog round at Sandown for the Victorian State Series when we were covering that, but apart from that, there's not a lot happening. The 6 hour is coming up, and yes, we will be down for the 6 hour at Phillip Island. I'm not sure how much of it we'll be able to cover, but we'll certainly be down there on the Sunday for some time. So you will see some news about that. Whether it's how much coverage we can afford to give it, I don't know at this stage, but we'll get down for and cover as much of it with as many cameras as we can sort of get out there. Because it's a great event. We've covered it quite a few times. It's lots of fun. Dave, you'd have done the 6 hour at all? 6 hour relay?
I haven't been a competitor, but I have been an official there, and I am slated to be part of the race control, race management team this time around as well.
Yeah, it's because they've sort of called it sort of, like we mentioned last night with the Alexandra 100 about it being called Speedway's Bathurst. Well, I've always called the 6 hour relay sort of Bathurst for the rest of us. It's got that vibe. I mean, they go to so much trouble. I mean, they have the national anthem. They have the whole. There's no one there to see it, mind you, but they go to all the trouble.
But it's for the people that really,
gives it
diehards. The diehards.
Yeah, and it's a great day out, and there's so many cars because it's a team event. I mean, how many cars? A couple of times they've had over 400 cars there at times, haven't they?
Well, it's limited to 50 teams because that's the grid capacity at Phillip Island. The teams, I believe, are limited to maximum of 6, minimum of 4, maximum of 6 drivers. Now, in those teams, sometimes you'll have 50 teams with 4 cars, so minimum 200 cars. Of course, everyone gets set up pit lane. It's taken very seriously, but remember, it is promoted, by a number of Victorian clubs as the Victorian 6-hour relay body. It's made up of, the very best people that run, the volunteer side of club level, state level, national level, and even international level motorsport in Victoria. Representatives from PIARC, the Australian Sports and Association Victoria, MG Car Club, the Victorian Mini Club, and all the other car clubs involved. I mentioned those 4 because they're also the ones that run the 4 of the 5 race meetings of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships. But it's the only thing that's on that weekend. There's no support racing. This is the chance for regularity, which, for those who don't know, this is like I call it the all brand of motorsport because it's all about staying regular. It's sprinting, so driving to a time, but without any time recording device in the car. So it's about maintaining consistency, maintaining a pace, and it's a points-based system, but it's a very complex algorithm behind it. And teams that have done really well are the ones that, not so much that they game the algorithm, but they figure, this is an event that happens in July in Victoria near the coast. So what does it happen? More often than not, it rains. When you do a regularity event, you nominate a lap time that car will do. So let's pick an example. A BMW E30 racing car can competently do in race conditions a minute 54 or a minute 55. The minimum time for the event is a minute 55. You can't go faster than that. But if you nominate, a minute 58 lap, congratulations, you might be able to do that. But if you're having to overtake 49 other cars to hit that lap time and it rains, you'll be doing 2 minutes 10, 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 30. Whereas the teams that have done really, really well, some of the teams from PIARC, the Victorian Mini Club teams, they'll pick an arbitrary lap time where they're just cruising with the car, doing 2 minute 30, 2 minute 40 lap times. And they're able to do that pace whether it's dry, whether it's wet, and whichever driver is in the car. And it's all about consistency and, the level that these teams take it to. It is, as you say, it's the Bathurst of, club level, motorsport. You get themed teams, everyone gets dressed up. And as Paul Vandenacker points out, the Alpha Club also runs a 12-hour relay at Winton in October. I did do a couple of 6 hours back in the early 2000s when I just started racing, but they were held at Winton and they were actually for race cars in regularity conditions, as opposed to the 6 hour, which is run as a sprint, a level 2 speed event under Motorsport Australia. So you can do it in a road registered car with a fire extinguisher and a bonnet restraint. You don't have to have a full roll cage and all that kind of stuff. Although they do have a few slightly higher than normal safety standards. And it's one of those events. It's like trying to get a garage at Sandown. It's all sold out within a day.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Outram, who joined us last week, a regular on the program for a number of years. Our mate has done a couple of 6 hours. Was going down with his Alpha, and I mean, it was often the one time a year he would actually take the Alpha out because it was absolutely perfect for that thing, because as you say, he could set a time, he could be consistent, he could just do lap after lap after lap, get plenty of laps in, work in conjunction with his other teammates to set a good average time, and they could do quite well out of it. But I mean, I think it's one of those events. I mean, some people obviously go in there and take it very seriously, and obviously really, really, really want to win, but I think everybody just goes down there to have a really good time and just get laps of that incredible circuit. For great people to get out there and
You don't reckon it's the scenery there, David, that they just look out there over turn one and just look out over the beautiful coast?
There is far more than a handful of teams that take it very, very seriously. Yeah. Yes, there's quite a large contingent that want to enjoy the event for what it is, for the celebration of club level motorsport and the camaraderie. Because if you've got 6 drivers in a team and a team manager and catering and support personnel, it's very much an engaging team activity. I think, as Brett points out, the biggest thing, very few activities for this level of motorsport do you get to spend that long in the car all at once at what is effectively the best permanent road circuit in the country. And I say that
motorcycle circuit. Don't tell Foxy might be listening.
Yeah, because normally when you do a super sprint or a regularity, it's a 10-minute session, a 12-minute session, a 15-minute session. The fact that you can be in the car for a maximum of 30 minutes in a stint, it gives people a lot of time to work on themselves and their driving. It's one of the reasons I pushed with the sports cars for us to combine our 2 sprint races on a Sunday into a 40-minute race, because it was the only chance we'd actually be able to give competitors to spend that long in a car consistently putting in lap time and enjoying themselves. Because for a lot of people, they're not doing this every second weekend like a supercars driver. Value for money in terms of track time is very hard to find. And it's often, those long periods of time where you can just calm down and enjoy yourself, that you actually tend to learn a lot of things about your own driving. Absolutely.
I was about to say, develop yourself there, Dave. You're right, totally right. And they not only is it just self-development, it's also car development. They can pick up things otherwise they wouldn't, unbeknownst to them, if they only just do a quick quality lap or a flying 5-lap race. They're too busy stoushing with other cars that are out there, or other vehicles that are out there, and therefore, someone says to you, "Oh, how did that work?" Oh, totally didn't even notice that about the car. So yeah, as you said, it's about getting quality time out there and development for yourself and for the vehicle that you're with. And the other thing is, too, when you're sharing the car, as you said, 4 to 6 other drivers, it's not just a comradeship. Some people will pick up some things about the car. Some people will notice other things about the car they're driving as well too. And sharing those ideas might actually make it a better experience for everyone to enjoy as well.
The other thing that you get there over the years, when we've covered it, is what I always enjoy is you always see there's always those different sort of cars, those cars that don't quite fit into the regular. You don't see them at the state level. Sometimes you don't even see them regularly at the super sprint or sprint level. There's different sort of cars that people will build basically just for that sort of event. And there's been some fascinating things we've covered over the years that really been sort of like backyard sort of sports, ultra low budget sports sedans that are actually really, really clever, and with different engines in them, and it's a great meeting. And unfortunately, it is one of those, because it's a club meeting. It's one of those things where they don't sort of encourage sort of spectators along in usually, and we don't know what the situation is this year, whether spectators can come anyway. I'd love to live stream. I think it would be fantastic to do a live stream from down there, but certainly if they talk, but obviously the budget. The budget may not cover it, but we'd certainly be interested. I think it would be a fascinating thing to go down there and do live coverage of. I think a lot of people would be interested.
As you're saying, Brett, all the different variety of cars, and Dave said there's a huge field that it's open to enter the event in so many different capacities. Talking about strength as well, though, too. We were briefly talking about off the air, as you were saying back at the start of this particular segment, the Bathurst Country Cousin version of the 1000 is in Speedway, who we had on the Warwick Taylor on the show tonight. Thanks for joining us there. They've filled to capacity up at Alexandra this weekend, so congratulations, and go out there and have an absolute ball and throw some tyre and mud and rubber around everywhere. They've hit the 80 limit capacity up there, which has just been confirmed in the last 24 hours. And the support races, I can't remember off the top of my head how many there are. It might be about 4, I think, have all hit the capacity. They've all got full entrance. They've got 40 per category. So good luck, and everyone that's heading north to Alexandra or south, or anyone below the border of the Murray River that we have, I suppose it'd be just all the Victorians. Enjoy yourselves up there at Alexandra this weekend.
I think it's actually been postponed until August. I think it's August that it's been postponed to, that it's going to run.
Alexandra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's but yeah, it is coming. It is coming up, and as Warwick was saying last night, it really is. It really is a lot of fun when you've got that many cars over that unique track. Because as he said, it's not just turn left, go fast. It's sort of turn left again, and then
Yeah.
turn right, and then turn left again. So
You got a bit of a hairpin in the middle or something. He said there,
yeah, it's
basically.
like it's basically kidney shaped. If you have a look at some of the footage from there, and you have a look at the way it's a very unique track. It's like kidney shaped, and they go around a tree. Actually, it's a very cool race, and obviously a really good meeting. And once again, it'd be great to get up there. But like I said last night or tonight on the show, by geez, even in August, it's going to be bloody cold up there.
Just on that one, then, Dave, if there's a tree in the middle of the track on a speedway, you don't usually adhere to that. Do you have dibs on who's going to, what car's going to hit the tree first, and you're going to have to get out there and give them a push off and shove and pull, not necessarily cut the roof off, but yes, it adds a different spice to life.
I'd observe that if you were trying to figure out which car was going to hit the tree trunk first, I think you'd all end up stumped.
Good evening, Mad Cow Mark. You're just in time for Dave's weekly joke. Sorry, guys. You haven't missed much, Mark. We've just done Formula One.
Yeah, we've talked Formula One. We've solved the problems of the problems of the world. So
first world problems.
Not much left. Speaking of which, as we see down the bottom, I woke up this morning to the surprise news that Chip Ganassi is getting out of NASCAR. He was basically made an offer that he couldn't refuse to get out of NASCAR, and that's interesting because he said very, very clearly in the press conference that I saw when NASCAR sent me the copies of the press conference was he was very firm that I'm definitely not getting out of motorsport, and my commitment to the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship in particular, and IndyCar is going to continue, and it might it opens up all sorts of possibilities for the IMSA campaign and possibly beyond there. Have we heard any rumours about what Chip is up to in IMSA? Because he was, of course, responsible for the Ford program. So, we heard anything at all?
What I always appreciated about Chip Ganassi Racing was across the board, they had multiple different brands represented. Of course, they were representing Ford for a number of years with the Daytona prototype era, and then, of course, later with the Ford GT, GTE, GTLM program, which netted them a win in class at the 2016 24 Hours of Le Mans. They've, of course, run Honda engines in the IndyCar series. And this year, of course, with the changeover of some of the IMSA brands, they're now running a different branded prototype in the IMSA series. And then in NASCAR, I believe they're running Chevrolets, or have been running Chevrolets. Yes, please don't blame me. Remembering, of course, that NASCAR is about to go through this huge revolution with the Gen 6, Gen 7 car, where it fundamentally changes not only the architecture of the car, but the way in which you build one. So in the old days, NASCAR teams were kind of like Supercars teams where it used to be, where they built 98% of everything in-house, maintained everything in-house. They had 18 different cars for the season and this, that, and the other thing. And whereas as of next year, you buy basically everything on the car from an individual supplier. So your overhead for staff comes down massively because you're not in the manufacturing business. You're in just purely a assembly, disassembly, maintenance, and preparation business. So there's a lot of facilities that were going to become redundant, a lot of staff that were going to, if not become redundant, need to be redeployed to other areas. And of course, as NASCAR is going through this massive shift, also we've got IMSA's DPI 2.0, as the ACO has coined it, LMDH, coming on board, which is the new LMP2 based top-tier sports car program with the manufacturer of bodywork and engines on board one of the 4 or 5 LMP2 control chassis. You do mention he's had a very good relationship with Ford, and Ford is one of the manufacturers that's been rumoured to have development of an LMDH. But, with the announcement of all the Volkswagen group companies that are joining LMDH, you've got BMW getting in on LMDH, although I'd say you'd probably expect that with Andretti or Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing doing that program. I'd say that Chip has got a number of things in the works. With which brand, I wouldn't know. I would defer to Marshall Pruitt from the Marshall Pruitt podcast to get the inside scoop on the IMSA paddock.
I'm glad you brought one of those points to light, David, especially about the Gen 6 chassis in NASCAR, the development, the big change it's going through, because you did mention about the development of it is going to be a off-the-shelf type package where it's completely built and everyone can buy it. It's going to be a cheaply run for everyone to use. That's how you're supposed to do it. Here in Australia, we do follow the concept as well too, but one particular team gets the rights to it and then sells it at an inflated price to everybody else. And you have all the other teams complaining about it. So I'm glad to see somewhere in the world that actually that concept does work, where it's supposed to be cheaper for everyone to use. Aside from the fact here in Australia, when someone does it, it actually inflates the price. So.
Well, the interesting thing was that when NASCAR sort of revealed the new generation cars, they did say in both the press conference and also in the press release, they did say that they were very heavily influenced by supercars in Australia. That they took a lot of, they had a good look at the racing over here. They had a good look at the cars, and they said we took a lot of inspiration from supercars in Australia, and you can see that now. I mean, shock horror. I mean, it took them like decades to get something as wild and as crazy and as advanced as fuel injection. Now they're going.
No, it's a phase.
Now they're going to run centre lock wheels. I mean,
that's a phase.
Yeah.
Independent rear suspension. That's a phase.
Yeah,
that was the.
Is that a new invention?
That was the joke in my TAFE course. Fuel injection. It's a phase. Like the metric system and radial tires. It's a phase.
Yeah, well, that'll be the next thing. I mean, I wonder if
just like coilovers has been a phase in your everyday driver anyway. Let's not go there.
You really want to freak out the NASCAR fans. Let's have them racing next year at the Daytona 875 kilometres or whatever it is. That'll really freak them out. But,
just also a couple of congratulations. You've got one of them down there on the bottom of the lower thirds, just pacing across the screen there at a nice level there. Tim Macro, you've mentioned, got his deal for 2021-22 for his S5000, so good luck with that. I did happen to catch that. And there was someone else. Oh, that's right, Brad Jones Racing's also you put on the bottom there, Nick Percat. So for the people who aren't watching us, they're just listening to us sometimes, they don't have the ability to grab on the full YouTube experience with us. Yes, congratulations to Mr. Percat. And according to Brad, it was basically it took 5 minutes and it was a given. So he's obviously well liked.
That has been that has been the way that Brad does contracts, and that's why the drivers that spend time with him do spend a lot of time there, because they appreciate a handshake deal is a legitimate deal with Brad. You just got to make sure you keep all your fingers by the time you finish the handshake. But if cast your mind back 10 years ago to the introduction of Car of the Future for the 2013 season of Supercars, what was then V8 Supercars. Remember how Brad Jones Racing came out of the gate? Because they were like, okay, I'm going to buy the front suspension from here and the rear suspension from here and the steering rack from here and the dampers from here. And the package they put together that first year, out of all the teams, was one of the most competitive. And the other thing they had working for them was they'd secured their drivers, primarily Fabian Coulthard and Jason Bright, early on, and they were a key component in moving that team forward, particularly at the start of that Car of the Future era. I think they're kind of 8 or 9 years later. We're going to the same program for 2022. We've got an all-new platform coming on board for Gen 3. You want to have your drivers locked in, particularly ones that have driven a whole bunch of other things. Todd Hazelwood's driven a bunch of other things. Nick Percat dabbles in a whole range of things. Macaulay Jones, as we know, very adept, and of course is a very, very athletic person.
He's coming to 4 at the moment too there as well, yeah. Dave. Macaulay's actually getting some good reviews around the paddock.
Yeah, I just the one for me is I still don't know what happens with the Smith family with their wreck. whether they continue to stay at Brad Jones, because, of course, Jack's father, Mr. Smith Sr., is also one of the rumoured parties that's part of the five-strong buyout consortium that's been touted as one of the keep Supercars Australian ownership stakes, which, again, it's a whole nother paradigm shift as we go into 2022.
The renders came out for the Brad Jones Racing Chevy today as well too.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was interesting that was in the Jack Smith Racing colours, in the Smith Racing colours.
Coca-Cola sponsored too, by the way. I think the renders were as well. So is there a link to Chris Pither? There you go. There's some cola. There's the Chris Pither's Coca. Oh, there you go. Some shameless.
All for you, Chris. Other beverages are available.
And if you're watching, Chris, I did send a message. We'd love to have you come in on the show one night. So please come on down. We'd love to see you.
My brother works with him up in Bendigo, so I've got to get on.
Have a word.
I've got to get on to Chris about that. And my brother has got to get his act together, and he said he was going to get it organised, but I shouldn't be letting him do the production stuff behind the scenes. I usually do it myself. But however, it was some great news. However, just what we just mentioned a minute ago about the buyout thing, Paddington, we were having a laugh before we got on air tonight. I quickly showed the guys a new picture of Mark Scaife, our friend Scafey, who's been around the paddock for 30 plus years. He's joined up with the Americans, but the thing is, Paddington's called it out. Scafey's trying to sell it as an Aussie concept. It's us buying and them, but really the guys that are really behind, we've got the money behind the scenes. It was all the the two big American companies that he's associated with.
The thing that Mark Scaife has got, I think they've got to be the favourites at the moment, to be honest with you, for the simple reason they do have that international collection, but also Mark is very, very well respected from a business standpoint within the Supercars organisation, within the media organisation. I know that the people at Foxtel have obviously got a very high regard for his business prowess.
Well, they worked with him. A couple of them worked in the Holden dealer team when he was back there back in the day.
And they've also got Craig Kelly on board. I mean, who has obviously all those years of experience in the AFL as a top AFL. First of all as a player, but then moving into management and becoming one of the most successful player managers in the country. Has also worked with HRT as well. So I think that if you have a look at sort of the strength of experience over a broad range, not just because it's more than just, as we said last week, it's more than just running a race. A racing series. Yeah. It's a media empire now. It's an event.
It's an events company. Business.
It's a media. Yeah, it's a media production company. It's much more than just the teams and going out and running a race. The other thing, as we said, as was on the ticker as well, is that apparently it is sort of semi-official. ARG, the Australian Races Group, are also supposedly interested in getting involved.
Well, that's because it sold for $111 million back in 2013 to the current owners, Archer Group.
2011.
2011, sorry, I stand corrected. Thank you, Dave. But the unofficial word was in 2019, ARG threw $40 million at it, and they said thanks, but no thanks. So what's it worth now?
Well, I mean, the more people have got involved, I think it's actually worth more than they're not going to get what they got for it originally. But I think as a television package, I think it's worth a bit more than people think, because if you have a look at the ratings at the moment, whatever you think about the ratings for Foxtel are actually really going well right now. I mean, they've had some of their best ratings, and quite often on Foxtel, the supercars are finishing up in amongst the AFL and the NRL matches. I mean, it's regularly finishing in the top 5 over the weekend, and that just didn't happen a few years ago.
Well, Townsville have got night races this year to watch. Perth hasn't, but Townsville will be free to air as well, so that adds a dimension.
Gold Coast, I think.
Sorry,
Gold
Gold
Coast,
Coast.
I think you meant.
And the Gold Coast.
I mean,
yeah.
so my apologies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gold Coast were going to run one night race, and the Sydney night race is going to be prime time on 7. So that'll be interesting to see. As they pointed out, the last time they ran the prime time, when Channel 10 ran it in prime time, it didn't get very good ratings at all. And that's the problem. It is going to be right up against an AFL match. So it's not going to be on the main channel. It's probably going to have to be on the on 7 Plus or one of the 7.
There's no AFL in December.
I'll play devil's advocate here, though. Is the reason why it's getting more ratings is because more people subscribed to pay TV last year because of that's what they did because they couldn't leave their own home.
I'm sure that's part of it. But the thing is, as I also said last week, there are more and more streaming services that are getting into the sports area. We've got Paramount Plus about to be launched in Australia, putting their face and a lot of money behind the soccer. We've got Stan. Stan have come out and said they're very, very happy with their rugby ratings, the ratings they're getting for the various rugby. They've said, and they have openly said, we are very much in the market for other sports in the future. And you would think that probably the AFL and the NRL are probably. Stan might be an outside chance for the NRL because of the Channel 9 connection. I mean, that would be a possible connection there, and that would be a big blow to. That'd be a big blow to Foxtel because for years and years Foxtel was way bigger in New South Wales and Queensland than it ever was in the rest of Australia. Because if you wanted to watch lots and lots of rugby league and you wanted to watch it live, it was really the only game in town. That's where you had to go. You got one or two matches on Channel 9, but you didn't sort of have the coverage that the free to air coverage that the AFL had with 7. So. So
do you reckon 60 to 80 Big M gorillas buy it? Do you reckon?
I'd be surprised if it went for much less than 100 million. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. And sure, there was no football on that weekend, but Darwin on free to air rated better than it did on the corresponding round on Channel 10.
Yeah, and that was I think that for whatever reason, Channel 10 has always struggled to get ratings for just about everything. I mean, when you compare one or the other, and it's always like but people seem to watch more sport on Channel 7. Channel 7 has got and Channel 9 was the cricket network. And in Victoria, all the rest of the sport was basically on Channel 7 because
7 and 10 swapped. 7 and 9 swapped. Remember, one had the tennis and one had the cricket, and when they swapped over, everyone was devastated. Like,
I still can't get used to watching the cricket on Channel. It's like flicking around and go, oh, that's right, it's on Channel 7 now. Just so many years of watching it. But then I go back. It took me long enough to go from the ABC. That was the horror of not just it going from the ABC, but they actually had cameras at both ends. I mean, how confusing is? How do we know what end they're bowling from?
Getting slightly off topic, but still on sport. How funny was it for many years as we're all growing up as kids? Doesn't matter how young or old you are. The VFL used to get covered on the ABC years ago, and all these years later, Channel 7 went, oh, there's something in this. We might put some VFL on. And the last few years, it's been they haven't done much of it this year, but it's been an topsy-turvy season. The VFL have had more restrictions on them than the AFL, and of course, games have had to be deleted. But Channel 7 used to do on Sunday afternoon put the VFL on, and that has been rating very well for the last few years when they've had the opportunity to do it because that's what ABC did back in the day, and everyone had nothing if they were home and just trying to chill and relax for the weekend. What they do, they watch a bit of VFL footy on the ABC.
Well, of course, the original days was when it was the VFA. I mean, it was Channel O as it was then, and Channel 10 because that was the only because of course all your VFL was played on the Saturday, and then all of your VFA was exclusively on the Sunday, so you'd have Dandenong and Port Melbourne and Coburg and
Sandy,
Port Melbourne and Sandy,
Werribee.
And all sorts of Werribee. all those sort of teams playing. But then, of course, during the summer, when the VFA season finished in September, Channel O would jump over to a summer full of motor racing, and as we said, you'd have Calder drag race, and this was all live. Drag racing from Calder, power boats from Lake Epilock, hill climb from Lakeland, and speedway from Redline, and circuit racing from Phillip Island. Basically on high rotation every week, live motorsport right throughout the summer. It was great.
The good old days.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Matt Baragwanath, shout out to our friends from the Benalla Auto Club group. Matt Baragwanath says, simply put, Supercars is only worth what someone is prepared to pay for it. And when ARG were the only people in the room, they were prepared to pay $40 million. Now that there's multiple bidders, and again, you'd observed in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been quite a lot of renewal in the supercars business of their long-term event contracts, their long-term television contracts, and as Paul Vandenacker points out, KO, the figures of Fox, both live and on delay, are really good, and the figures on 7 have been fantastic. But the one critical figure that's not made public, that I'm guessing a lot of the interested parties do get access to, is what's the digital footprint of the sport via KO and also via Supercars Superview, because
the breakup.
those are two very important metrics that are not being publicly released. And I'd say it's probably doing a hell of a lot better than even we think it is. And I for one, am a great convert to KO. I proudly sent my Foxtel IQ 3 box back to Foxtel, and the $71 a month that I saved, I spent on an Apple TV HD 4K and $25 a month on KO. It's simple. The app's brilliant. And that's where the sport is going. And as we've seen with Channel 31, with Community Television Australia Online, it's the future of sports broadcasting. Wow. Once you get away from having to have any of the, major broadcast infrastructure high up on a hill, on free to air, you can stream it, you can geo-block it, you can overlay it, you can make it interactive, you can make it digestible at any time, anywhere, on a smartphone, on a tablet. You can stream it live to a headset in the Boeing 737-800 on Virgin Australia. There's so many different things you can do with it. You just got to make sure that you get your COVID injection, your COVID-19 vaccine, so you get the excellent 5G reception.
And if you want to tune in later, we've got Dave Stillwell's Tech Corner for In Pit Lane, and he'll explain on how you can all do all that over. But no, I'm on your side actually, totally with that, Dave. The $64 question is slightly getting back on topic. Is will the teams give up any of that 35% they own?
That'll be the interesting one. Because, whoever buys it, that might be
part of the negotiations.
Certainly, Adderton has sort of hinted at that if he's going to buy the thing, he basically wants control, and that might be another reason why. How much of that 35%
they give up, or they relinquish, or they keep, or what say do they have as well too? Because there'll be also rights that come with that thing, and that'll be written in contracts for that 35%. So, anyway, stay tuned for that one for sure. Anyway, there you go. There's been a couple of little flow of thirds that you've had down there, some graphics there, Brett, of some, I think you said rallycross there, one of the gentlemen put there before a few minutes ago, and then the more of the future for you to go, US flow dirt coverage. So anyway, everyone's good to see everyone's got a sense of humour at this time of night.
Clay per view for Speedway has been massive as well. Speedway is definitely the kind of thing that's been, rewarded with online coverage, that's digestible, accessible, and it's a short, sharp bit of information. And hi to Paul Vandenacker, race control to safety too. Thank you for your comments. That'll be enough, please.
Very, very good. Just as well, though, too, while we are actually still on the supercars bit, later on, I did pick up on a piece of anything's good for charity, giving back to the sport and going out to the fans, and something that everyone can participate in as well to this year. It's been advertised early, and if you've got a orange $20 note in your wallet, or a digital version of it, or a pay ahead sort of version, the Ultimate Motorsport prize is going to be on offer at Bathurst 1000. And just don't quote me on the bits and pieces that I'm going to be on about tonight. There's a whole thing. I think they're flying you up to Bathurst. I think Virgin's the official partner. It's 2 nights accommodation, all meals provided, entertainment, all the sorts of stuff. But you also get for your $20 if you win the raffle for the Ultimate Motorsport prize. Is you and a friend get hot laps with Marcus Ambrose, who's just joined the Gary Rogers Motorsport team, Barry and Gary. So congratulations to Marcus. He's going to drive you around the track in a supercar legit, and do a hot lap around Bathurst, and that would be to die for if you can't go that. And they're not going to put a speed limit as well, though, too. They've told Marcus already he can go for his life. He can go as hard as he can. They're not going to put a speed trap on it. So good luck. Yeah, jump onto the Ultimate Motorsport prize. I think it's a website or the link or whatever it is, and you can, for $20, you can be in that raffle and win that massive, awesome experience up at Bathurst 1000 later on in the year.
Now, while we're on plugs, before we go to something a bit serious in just a moment, I'll just mention that if you watch the show tonight, we announced the In Pit Lane Pit Crew, which is our new Patreon thing. Was very much in the early stages, and once again, thank you. We've already got people who have signed up, and thank you to those people. We'll be in touch with you very soon to let you know how you can get access to the exclusive Discord server. If you don't know what Discord is, it's basically, it started out basically as a communications device for people in gaming. So, and it's really like sort of a Facebook without all of the noise and advertising and fake news and abuse. It's like our own private little forum come Facebook page that we can discuss motorsport issues. There's a whole lot of sub channels there. Formula One, supercars, drag racing, speedway, whatever part of motorsport you're interested in. There will be a forum there. Now, obviously, there's no one there at the moment because we haven't opened it up yet. But over the next few weeks, we're going to do that. So once again, thank you to everybody who's been a part of it. It's the In Pit Lane Pit Crew. You can go to that. You can go to the Patreon page at patreon.com, The Pit Crew, and you can sign up there for as little as $4 a month. So thank you to everybody for supporting us on that one. We really do appreciate it. I mean, and once again, Paul, that was a problem that we've come up. Not just speedways. Well, we were originally the meeting we were going to do at Nyora. The reason that we ended up not going to Nyora because of the COVID and all the rest of it. The reason we ended up at Nyora was our original plan was to go up and do the Rob Roy Hill climb. And we just got up there and found out that we just couldn't get a reliable signal out. It was just impossible to get a decent mobile signal out of the place in order to do the live stream. So we had to sort of knock that on the head. Had all the gear and just went, well, I know that even though it's in the country, the signal at Nyora is actually very good. We'd live streamed there before, so we were going to go down and cover the sprint cars at Nyora, and that's why we were going to go down and do that. And as we said like earlier on the show tonight, it just kept getting cancelled and cancelled. COVID cancelled it, the weather cancelled it, then COVID cancelled again, then the weather. They've had a terrible run, those guys. So there. Now, before we go, we've just about run out of time. But Dave, you wanted to say a word about someone that unfortunately a well-known official around the local motorsport scene who unfortunately passed away just recently. I'll leave that with you.
So this afternoon we had a very poignant and funny service for a very good friend from Team Medical Australia, Jono Taylorson, affectionately known as Josh in his family, and Jono by us in Team Medical Australia. Jono was just 54 years old and got a diagnosis of stage 4 lung cancer in June of last year. Was given 6 to 12 months to live and fought it as hard as he could. It was right at the worst moment in his life, because there he is, happy-go-lucky guy, made friends with everyone, not just in the medical team, but in all the emergency services and all the trackside officials. Came out from the UK at a young age. He's survived by his widow, Fiona, who he married earlier in the year, and their 2 kids. And, of course, Declan, shout out to Declan, who's I've met around the traps at Motorsport. He'll be coming to see us at Sandown shortly. Just a massive loss to Team Medical, and to see him, fight this battle with, that big bastard that is the Big C, was painful. I will miss you dearly. I will probably even start drinking ice breaks and iced coffee in your memory, but I'll certainly keep eating donuts, as we like to do. But yeah, it was a really great service this afternoon. Thank you to those that presented. And just a mention to all the volunteer officials that make the sport run. You are valued, you are welcome, and we always look forward to having chats with you around the traps. We can't have a sport without you. I'm one myself, and it's been an amazingly fulfilling part of my journey. Jono's certainly enlightened and livened up a huge number of people's lives through the medical team. He, in a number of instances, was one of the people that made sure that some competitors were still here to keep competing in the sport. The level of professionalism that he brought, a little over 12 months ago, he was even in Vietnam helping to train the Vietnamese medical team for the aborted, Formula One race in Hanoi. I can't say enough about him. They say that to live in the hearts of those we leave behind is not to die. I'd certainly say that, Jono's living on in quite a number of hearts after his recent passing. So just my 2 pence worth, shout out to you, Jono. Flyby authorised Ghost Rider. The pattern's no longer full.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, our thoughts, of course, with Jono's family and many friends. And as Dave said, the officials, and I do get angry at times, because sometimes at the top level, some people do tend to forget the people who are out there, and making it all possible for you to go racing every week and for us to watch it without, as Dave said, without the officials, there is no racing. So thank you to everybody who puts in the time and volunteers, and in often very, very difficult conditions. And as I said, our condolences to Jono's family and friends.
Wholeheartedly. And it's just not just motorsport; it's in all sports as well too. I know a lot of people. It doesn't matter what sport you're in, whether it be local or around the world. A lot of it's the officials, it's the volunteers, it's those great people that are up at all hours of the morning and they're at the end of the day first to get there. And yeah, exactly, Dave. They're first.
Thanks, Mark.
Last leg. Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah, thank you everybody. So I think we will. I think we will leave it with there. Thank you to everybody. Thanks, Box. Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Michael and Paul. Paul, I will be in touch with you regarding that information you sent through. Thank you for that. And we will try and run something in the next week or so on the program.
Just quickly, I mentioned about that raffle before, sorry, and Dave reminded me all those proceeds for that is $20 tickets go to St Vincent's Hospital. That's what they all are. So it's all for charity as well, though, too, to help people like all Dave's friends that are in the medics, etc. So yeah, get behind it.
Yep, good cause. Okay, everybody. Thank you for tonight. It's been a good chat. We had a lot to get through. Hopefully, we'll have a lot to get through next week. Now, next week on In Pit Lane, our special guest will, as I said, mentioned tonight, will be Grant Rowley. Grant, of course.
Oh yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, also, he's written, as I said tonight, he's written not just one book, he's written a series of books, but they're fairly small books, but they're also books for small people about some of the most famous racing drivers in Australia. They're launching that on the weekend, and Grant's coming in on for next week's show. And
fantastic.
You've got to get the kids early. That's how you get them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. Get them in and get them early, and we'll find out about where the inspiration came from, because it's an interesting approach. We'll find out where he got the idea from, why he wanted to do it, and also the interesting choices he's made in terms of the people he's featured, including a lot of good mates of ours, like John Bowers there, and of course the late Peter Brock,
Dickie as well too, I think.
There as well. So yeah, so Dickie and also Molly Taylor as well, who and Molly Taylor, one of the reasons she left the. We mentioned it on the program that when she said she wasn't coming back to do the stuff with Seven and ARG, that she was probably, because of the Extreme E thing, she was getting a higher profile overseas again. She has in fact gone back and she's doing some World Rally Championship stuff as well. So good on Molly there. Okay, everybody. I think that's all we have time for tonight. That said, thanks a lot. We'll see you all. We'll see you all next week. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the racing over the weekend. Remember, if you're not watching Formula One and all the rest, there will be stuff. There'll be lots of live streams happening, and we'll put them on the In Pit Lane website, inpitlane.com. Whatever we sort of find. We had Santa Pod racing, drag racing, some fantastic stuff from there last week on the website, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So
good luck to Jack Miller.
that.
Good luck to Jack Miller and MotoGP this week. Stay on the bike. That'd be good.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, we didn't get time to talk to that, but yeah, stay on the bike, Jack, and well done to Fabio. And let's see if we can have a change of leadership and see how we go this week. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. So from all of us here at Full Course Yellow and in Pit Lane, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.